Hello guys, welcome back to another video. I've got this wonderful gentleman alongside me today, Smithy, Sky Sports presenter, and of course you may have seen him on Saturday Social, alongside me when I smashed the Mastermind. I just have to say that, I put it out there.
You did?
Yeah, I did indeed, but this wonderful man here, look, we needed to talk about Spurs, and I thought, who's a big Spurs fan? I thought, Smithy's a big Spurs fan, so we got him on today. He's repping Spurs as well. Welcome to the channel, mate. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. Firstly, what an intro, mate! Wonderful man. I didn't expect that. That wasn't in the intro that I thought you had planned for me. So I've been called a lot worse. Let's put it that way.
Well, you should have seen the first draft anyway.
Much.
You know what I mean?
No, I'm very good, mate. Very busy. It's been a busy start to the season. So yeah, can't complain. And honoured to be on your channel. You obviously feature regularly on Saturday Social and bits and pieces that I do with Sky. So the roles are reversed now. I'm often asking, grilling
Exactly.
you. Although I've got to say, grilling a Man City fan, it doesn't. That sentence doesn't really work, does it? You usually get quite easy questions when you come on because Man City win every game.
Well, I was chatting to
every single week, it seems. But
yeah.
So I'm on the receiving end now. You're playing. We're swapping roles, so I'm looking forward to it.
I was chatting to Harriet from the Anfield Rap, who was on the other day with us.
Yeah.
And she asked if we could do a bit for the Anfield Rap, and I said during it, I said, I sort of hate going to other channels talking about City because it just looks it's so positive. It must be so like hard to listen to for a rival fan because I'm like, yeah, he's great, this is great, that is great, and there's literally nothing ever to moan about. So
although what I will say is, mate, you may have won every trophy on multiple occasions every single year, but have you won a game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? That is the real quiz.
Well, that's the end of the video, guys. Thanks very much for watching. It's been great.
That's what I'm clinging on.
Did you hear what Pep said at the start of the season? Did you hear that quote from Pep when he was there? Like, yeah, that's the only aim to win at win at Spurs. That's the only aim this season, to score a goal at Spurs. We haven't got Harry Kane now, but you've got probably a better manager and a better team right now. So we'll get onto that. Let's start with that, of course. I mean, that's the title of the video. I put quite salaciously, "Are Spurs as good as Arsenal?" Because you just drew 2-2 away, and you were good. I mean, obviously Arsenal had their spells as well because it's we'd expect them to. They're a more experienced team at this stage as a collective, but still, I'm looking at those stats right now, man. They're pretty much bang down the middle, in terms of possession, shots. You had slightly more possession actually, and I've seen the highlights and all that kind of stuff. I didn't quite catch the game, but I've caught up afterwards. Firstly, you must have been relieved to one because obviously recently records been really poor against Spurs, and you must have been buzzing after that full time about the game.
It's a good question, that. I mean, if you'd have asked me before the game, would I have taken a point? Absolutely, would have bitten your hand off for a point. Our record at Arsenal is poor, and obviously the season they had, I'm a very honest fan in my assessment. I think Arsenal are a fantastic team, very, very easy on the eye. They've got so many. I'm a huge fan of Saka. That fluid front movement they've got with Odegaard and Martinelli and Saka. They are a fantastic offensive team. So I would have bitten your hand off for a point. It was a weird one afterwards, mate. I was sort of like, okay, we've got a point, but I did feel like the game was there for the taking. And when you go to Arsenal, as you've just alluded to, a place we have an abysmal record. I mean, Yunus Kabul scored the last winner in a league game.
God, that's a throwback.
At the Emirates, which was years ago.
Was that like 2014 or something like that? I don't know.
I think it was before that. We were 2-0 down, and then Van der Vaart scored. Bale was playing that day, and Yunus Kabul completed the turnaround to win 3-2. Wasn't at that game, unfortunately, but our record in the league against them has been very poor. So when you factor all that in, I did think the game was there for the taking. And when you consider that they scored a penalty and an own goal, it sort of makes it a bit tougher to take. And I did feel, I'm honest enough to admit, obviously, if Jesus scores that at 2-0, they probably go on to win that. But then, Raya made a fantastic save, had a couple of late chances. So, yeah, it was a weird one. I probably think a draw was a fair result, but I look at that and go, that was potentially an opportunity missed with the way that we played, that we slightly disappointed we didn't get all 3 points, if I'm honest, but probably a fair result overall.
But even that sentence, that conclusion, it is a wild turnaround, isn't it? And I mean this with the greatest respect to Spurs, because how many, and I mean this honestly as well, because how many people knew that Ange Postecoglou would come in and be this good straight away? He had obviously a really cool, it was sort of an underground, kind of like that non-mainstream band that everyone thinks is cool, but he kind of comes in and no one's really fully heard him. He hasn't really done it yet at Wembley or whatever. Like, that makes more sense than anything, given the metaphor there, Wembley band and everything, and Spurs. But you know what I mean? Unintentionally. But you don't know if you can play a Glastonbury main stage yet. You know what I mean? You don't know if you can do that, and he's just stepped it up perfectly. Like, he's like
pyramid stage.
Exactly. Yeah, he was at the pyramid stage. Now he's at the main stage. And so far, to him, to be fair, he's been absolutely incredible. The football that you play in, just I know it's hard to say, but in your opinion, just how good is this Spurs side? What has become the realistic target for this season?
Yes, it's a great question, that, and what I think is one of the best things about this season is not so much the results. Obviously, that it's great looking at the league table where we are. The fact we're still unbeaten, having played the likes of Man United and Arsenal already, that's great. But I think it's the way that we're playing. You know, you hear Spurs fans chanting, "We've got our Tottenham back," and just loving the phrase "Ange ball," because we've had a history of let's not kid ourselves, very successful managers that we've had previously at other clubs, the likes of Jose Mourinho and Conte. They've both left, as have other managers previous to that. But I think it's the way that we're playing for, and the way that we're trying to play for. I almost think that Spurs fans, I don't want to speak on behalf of all of them, but they're enjoying going to Tottenham and watching the team play now because of the way that we're trying to play. I mean, one of the first things Ange did was, right, we're going to a back four straight away, and we're utilising, we're playing Maddison in the hole, playing two sit-in. We're playing a lot more attacking football, but also, I mean, going to the Emirates and trying to play out from the back. I know people will point to that Maddison Jesus incident, but it didn't stop Spurs playing the ball and then dictating possession and having more of the ball after that, which I think is a very brave and ballsy philosophy to implement. And I think the players are really buying into it. You know, I watch so many snippets. I'm lucky enough to interview so many players, and you know, I watch a lot of the training videos and speak to various players in and outside of the game. And the one theme that I have with Ange is that everyone loves playing for Ange, and he's such an honest person in his assessment of the game. So I think, and you just know what you're getting with him. I just think he speaks so brilliantly in sort of his pre and post match, not just about football, but you know, there was a famous clip the other day at the fans forum when he said there was one more question and a young kid got to ask his question, and he said it was, you know, that kid said it was a highlight of the evening for him. You know, he spoke amazingly about mental health. He's one of the most honest. And what I would say is I think he's probably the most likable, or if not one of the most likable managers in the Premier League currently. I have actually got some mates who are Arsenal fan, by the way. That might surprise you, but I do have some friends that are Arsenal fans. My brother's even an Arsenal fan. And a lot of them are saying to me, do you know what, mate? I can't believe I'm saying this as an Arsenal fan, but I really like Ange Postecoglou. And it's like, that's the ultimate compliment. I think we have to, you know, balance that with it is early days, and it's, you know, some Spurs fans sometimes are guilty of getting a bit carried away and stuff like that, as most football fans are, and I'm guilty of that as well. When I say Spurs fans, I mean me. But it is early days. That's the only thing I will caveat that with. But I think...
Well, he said you're allowed to, by the way. He said you're allowed to get carried away. I saw that quote when he was like, just do it. He said, get carried away. You're a football fan. And I agree with that, by the way. I really hate this this trend of fans having to not get carried away and be cautious as if we're the players. No, fans can get carried away. Like, it's football. Enjoy it. Like, football is a fundamentally ridiculous thing. You know, we watch these millionaires run around a pitch in massive coliseums, and like, it's ridiculous. Enjoy it. It's theatre. You know, it is. And like, I think he's right to say, let fans enjoy themselves. And the thing is as well, that positive energy. You play Liverpool this weekend. Like, that stadium's going to be rocking. And he's not telling you to be cautious. He's telling you, enjoy it, believe it, you know what I mean, and get behind it. And I would not be surprised. It's already reached that point, and we're only talking the 7th game of the season. I think you could beat them, and that's a crazy turnaround already. And that's a testament to his quality as a manager and his quality as a person as well, because it's so obvious. And you're right about him; he's easily the most likable. I'm already going, oh God, I wouldn't mind if he was Pep's replacement. I know, hands off and all that, but you can't help but think that. Here we go. You can't help but think that. And that's the thing is, like, he has actually got that City Football Group link, of course, with all his former clubs and so on. But he's just such a refreshing breath of fresh. Like, he's so refreshing because he talks about them people, and I'm a big advocate of that as well on my channel, talking about footballers as humans. You know, like just treating them like, because so much of what we go through as an individual, it doesn't matter. You know, as he said, it doesn't matter how rich you are, whatever, how are you doing. Everyone's got a troublesome family member, or everyone's got a tough, you know, problem at home. So I love it, and I think it's great. It's hard for me to enjoy Spurs doing well, but given everything, but I can't deny that it's good to see a good person do well, you know. And like, I
think that's a really good point that you make. Actually, sorry to interrupt, but it's not just the manager; it's the person as well. And as I say, I've spoken to a lot of people within the game that have spoke very positively about him. Not just as a manager, but as a person as well. He is what you see is what you get, and he's very refreshing. I haven't been fortunate enough to meet him yet, and I hope, you know, I will do with my work that I do with Sky and with Tottenham as well. But it's just, I've heard that from a lot of people, that just how likeable he is, and actually how much he's involved in around the whole football club. And I think we're seeing that in every aspect of the game. But fingers crossed it continues, mate, because it is early days.
Top 4?
Oh, do you know what's interesting about that is I didn't see anyone put Spurs in the top 4 this season, because obviously, you know, the season we had last season and then losing, in my opinion, probably the greatest player that we've ever had, certainly the greatest player we've ever had in the Premier League era. I mean, a record scorer. And I think the thing about Harry Kane is what I think. Unless you watch Tottenham all the time, you didn't realise how crucial he was. It's not just his goals. I mean, he scored 30. I mean, there's a debate there for you. You're a City fan. I'm a Spurs fan. I saw that on social media the other day. Is scoring 30 goals for Tottenham, who finished 8th in the Premier League, more impressive than scoring 36 goals for a treble-winning Man City team? Now, I know Haaland won the treble and scored more goals in all competitions, 52, I believe it was. But, that's a comparable... That's a debate that has split opinion. That's how good Harry Kane was. So it's not just the goals, but it's what he does in terms of the link-up play and what he does off the ball. So losing him, I mean, at the time, it was... I mean, that is a catastrophic loss to your football club, losing someone like Harry Kane. So the way that we're playing, and also don't forget that was very near to our first game of the season. I do think, that's a move. And I've worked with Harry many times, and he's a brilliant guy, and good luck to him buying, and I hope he's really successful. And I actually think it was a move that may suit all parties if we do invest in January as well, in terms of actually bringing a replacement. And I don't think you're ever going to replace Harry Kane. But I just think the way that we are playing so soon after losing such a key player is testament to the manager, and of course James Maddison's been a massive part of that.
Yeah, incredible avoiding of the question as well.
What was your question?
Top 4.
It wasn't it? It was an amazing avoidance.
Yeah, no. It's like a politician there, mate. It was like no, I know you didn't mean to for what it's worth, but it was like instinctively done. I think
the answer is Wednesday. No, my point I was going to make, I did divulge massively there, didn't I? I do apologise, mate.
No, it's fine, don't worry.
The point that I was trying to make is no one had Spurs in the top 4. I don't think many people had Spurs in the top 6 now at the start of the season. I didn't see any pundit or guest that we've had on our show that had Tottenham in the top 4, top 6. In answer to your question, and I will answer it, do I think Spurs are capable of finishing the top 4? Yes, I do. I wouldn't say they're favourites. They're in that, favourites with the bookmakers and all that, and they're nailed on for it. But I think we are capable to finish in the top 4. I do think we need a little bit of investment potentially in January, because I do look at the 11. I think if someone like Son or Maddison gets injured, then we are a bit short after that. And of course, we've still got Bentancur, who is a huge player for us, who's been out from the back end of last season and all of the season so far. Perisic suffered a league-ending injury, so he's out for the entire season recently. Brennan Johnson hobbled off in the Arsenal game. Maddison took a knock. I know he played on, but there is concern there that there are certain players that are so important. I mean, you look at Man City, and I think head and shoulders, Kevin De Bruyne is your best player. I know Haaland's great, Rodri's great, but in terms of how you tick as a team, I think he's the best player in the Premier League, Kevin De Bruyne. He's out of your team, and you're still the best team in the league, and you've got other players to come in. Now, that's the difference, I think. If Spurs lose a Son or a Maddison, there's a huge gap in the hole. Whereas you look at Man City, and you just bring in just world-class player after world-class player.
Yeah, and look at your bench, and it's definitely a little bit short creatively. It's like some good defenders on there, but you do need a little bit of a spark off the bench, because Richarlison has not fully had it yet. Then you have people like Mano Solomon. Højbjerg is obviously more defensive. Emerson Royale, Dyer. Ben Davis. It's like, then they've got the young lad, the young striker, haven't you? But he's like, obviously only he's only a kid still, really, and he's still adapting. Young, well, I think you can do it. I honestly think you do. It's hard not to say United, because everyone instinctively does, but I think you're a better side than United this season, and I think they're gonna have a run of games around Christmas. Yeah, I do. I honestly think you are. I think you've got more of an identity, and then Brighton, we just don't. Let's get on to United, actually, because let's go because obviously we're gonna look around.
Just quickly, Stephen, I want to ask you that to get your opinion. That was interesting. Do you think Spurs will finish top 4 then?
Yes.
You do.
I think. I think it's a perfect storm. I think it's a perfect storm of Chelsea struggling still, and we'll get onto them in a bit. I think United are. I just don't think they're any better. They will improve a little bit on their current form, but I look at a run of games they've got around Christmas, which could be brutal for them with the Champions League as well. And I just don't see them having the cohesion. I put it this way. I think 9 times out of 10 you beat United right now in a head-to-head game. I just think you would do, because I think there's a positivity around Spurs, and of course you've got an incredible home stadium. You've got some elite players there, and like Arsenal will obviously finish in the top 4. Liverpool will finish in the top 4. City will finish in the top 4. I think the 4th spot. Chelsea aren't it right now. I don't think they are. I think United. It's you, Brighton, United probably going for it, and I think you probably got a little bit more than Brighton potentially. Because I think Brighton, let's see if they last the whole season. I think the question mark is still there, not because they aren't a great team, it's just because you just don't associate them with Champions League push yet. But we'll see, man. I think you can do it. I think you got to.
I agree. I think Arsenal, City, and Liverpool are probably nailed on for the top four. And then it's one or the other is how I see it.
I don't. Let's get on to Chelsea because we had obviously a big last time I saw you on Saturday Social. We had a big chat about Chelsea with Rory there as well, and I quite controversially said I don't think they're any better, and since then they've drawn 0-0 against Bournemouth and lost Villa 1-0, and like Villa the other day, that was a crushing blow at Stamford Bridge there, and I know they have injuries. But where do you stand on it? Obviously, it's a London rival, so to speak. And where do you stand on Chelsea? And did you catch any of the Villa game, or if so, what did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I've watched a lot of Chelsea this season, and again, mate, I'm a massive fan of Pochettino. I was lucky enough to work with him on many occasions back at Spurs. I thought what he did in that period of Tottenham when we didn't spend so much, when we were going through a stadium move, huge injuries to players. What he managed to achieve at Tottenham, I thought was phenomenal. Big fan of him as a person as well. Undoubtedly one of the nicest people I've ever met in the game. So in terms of what's happening at Chelsea, I think it is just I think it is just they need time because they've bought so many. They've lost a lot of players and bought so many players. They're always going to be a headline because of the amount of money they've spent. When you spend that amount of money, I think the perception is from the wider football side that you've got to hit the ground money because you spent an absolute ridiculous amount of money, and it is a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah.
They have got some quality players though. That's what I can't put my finger on as to why these results are happening and why they're not getting more points on the board. And Nkunku's a massive miss. I do think it's worth pointing out the injuries that they have because they've got a horrific injury crisis at the minute. And I just think they need a lot of time because they've got so many young players that need to bed in. They do need a goal scorer. I think Nkunku being injured is a huge blow. Jackson's obviously now suspended as well. So it's a tough one. I don't think the blame is solely on one particular part of that. I just think they need time to bed in. Do I see them as top four? I don't think they'll finish top four this season. No, just because they're already playing catch up, and we're only, we're not even a quarter of the way through the season.
Of course,
I'm trying to work my maths out there. I don't think we are. So I just think they need time. And I think it's one of them because they've got a lot of young players. This season's almost like a bedding in period where they need to give Pochettino time and the players time to bed in, and because that's effectively what happened at Spurs. We got better throughout the years of Pochettino and his backroom staff, and double that with the amount of new players that Chelsea's got. I do think they need time. The counter argument to that is: do Chelsea give players, managers, systems time? That's the key thing as to what will happen. And I don't know, but they have got some quality players. So it is weird why they aren't picking up more points than they have.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the injury list just now. I just googled it because it is a bunch of. It's Wesley Fofana, Nkunku, Romeo Lavia, Trevor Chalobah, Reece James, Chukwuemeka, Madueke. And then Marcus Bettinelli and Badiashile. It's a lot of players. A lot of them are young, admittedly, and a lot of them are relatively new still to it. But you would have to say their chances of winning games would be better if they had those players that they signed, which is always a fair thing, especially their captain. But he's always injured, Reece James. So it's
big player for them as well. That's a big injury for the way that they play.
I mean, literally, he's a huge player for them. And the thing is, as you touched on as well, like they don't tend to. It feels like they've already not given some of the players that they bought a year ago a time because they've already signed their replacement or the backup. It's just there's a massive churn at Chelsea, and it goes back to the Todd Bowley debate. I mean, we'll see how it pans out because they can't turn around and point to lack of quality for the manager. Pochettino's he's a European elite level manager.
Great manager. Yeah.
So he's a great man. He's more love, and I think the football is sort of getting to his style. But right now there's a real lack of cutting edge, and the Premier League is so brutal that you look around Chelsea and I know they're struggling, but you look at the teams above them they can all give you Forest and Brentford and Fulham and Palace. They can all give you such a tough game. It is reached that level now where I said this on a video recently. Most teams have one player that's Champions League quality at least in the Premier League. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm not talking about to play for Barca, but I'm talking to play for Porto or whatever, something like that. And even Forest have those level players, which is crazy, isn't it? Forest did. They had Brennan Johnson, and he, in my opinion, is clearly good enough to play at a high level. And then they have Morgan Gibbs White, people like that at Forest, and Palace of Eze, and so it's just hard, and the problem is to get for Chelsea right now they have to get going in a storm basically, and it's just hard for them, isn't it? But we'll see. What about United? Because obviously they beat Burnley the other day. Their start to the season has been it's been chaotic. Hasn't been ideal so far. 1-0 to Burnley. Prior to that, they did lose to Brighton 3-1. Lost to Arsenal 3-1 prior to that as well. A lot of 3-1s this season for what it's worth. It feels like the score of the season so far. They beat Forest for that 3-2, but they were 2-0 down at the time. they would have been.
And even the Wolves game, the first game at Wolves, they were lucky to. I mean, that was a blatant pen, wasn't it? Later on, they were lucky to get all 3 points of that one. Didn't play particularly well against Tottenham.
And then the Burnley game, by the way.
The Arsenal game is actually the weird thing about that is the Arsenal game they could have nicked it, but for that offside. So they've been very inconsistent this season. Well, I mean I suppose that's being kind. They haven't played particularly well, but they have won their last. They did beat Burnley. They did win in the week as well.
Yeah.
In the cup, so maybe they're starting to turn it around. But I think again that what United were doing well last season, that they had a sort of a slightly more consistent end to the season, finishing obviously third, winning the trophy under Ten Hag. He looked to in his first season, which was obviously a good season for United. Whereas I think now with them, they're conceding far too many goals. And it's, again, they've got a lot of players out. But do I look at them as nailed on top four? Not really. Going back to what I said earlier, you know, Liverpool, Arsenal, City nailed on. It's one of the other four. So I look at that as a Spurs fan and go, well, we are definitely in the running alongside Chelsea and Man United for that fourth spot, because United are just so inconsistent.
That's the thing is as well. I mean, like Burnley have had such a poor start to the season, and this is wild to see that a team that sat down in 19th, Burnley, newly promoted, against Man United, 62% possession. And I know that the only thing that matters is the 1-0. I get it, but things like that are an indicator of where the team's currently at. And given this is meant to be this Ajax protege manager who's meant to play, you know, really technical football, he's been outpassed by a Burnley team that's struggling, and it doesn't really. Goals matter. I get it. I'm not an idiot. I understand that that's more important. But it's not like it doesn't project well for the end, going forward, does it? It's one of those things where, as an indicator of like the current quality, it's like you did sort of struggle to keep the ball against Burnley, and I mean that with the greatest respect. Like, this is a team that's only 1 year into this possession football thing, and you're one of the biggest teams in the world in the world. So. We'll see. We just got a comment in on the live video, by the way, from a guy called Archie. He said, "Should Spurs?" Thanks for the super chat, Archie. Appreciate it, mate. He said, "Should Spurs prioritise winning a domestic cup before challenging for leagues and Champions League to get the monkey off the back? It's much easier as most of the big clubs don't take it seriously." What do you reckon? Should they prioritise that trophy or Champions League?
It's a good question, and I don't know whether he's having a dig at the fact that we haven't won a trophy in a while, or the fact that we're out of the League Cup already, and he knows that.
I think he might have forgot that, to be fair, because like if he's a City fan, like,
or he's an Arsenal fan.
I forgot that he's already been around, because we come into it now, don't we? So I forgot.
Kill me, yeah. We were out before you were even in it. Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that, mate. On penalties as well, the worst way to lose. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say trophies don't matter. It has been a long run since Spurs won that League Cup. Robbie Keane, Jermaine Defoe, Berbatov era. It was ages ago we last won a trophy. We've come very close. What a player! But I'd love us to win a trophy. And it's one of them where if we were to win the FA Cup, I think that's going to be very difficult. I just look at City as favourites for any competition they're in right now, to be brutally honest, with the squad that they've got. Winning the FA Cup will be very tricky this time around, and that is the only trophy realistically we can win, because we're not in any European competition and we're out of the League Cup already, and we're not going to. I don't think we're going to win the Premier League. I think that's fair to say. I think you can hand it to Man City now, that one. But if we were to win the FA Cup, I think it would be it would end that sort of meme culture that is associated with Tottenham from rival fans. You know what I mean? Anytime we get knocked out of a cup, it's stick that in your trophy cabinet, or we do anything good at all in any aspect. It's, do you want a trophy for that, or do you win a trophy for that? So there is that meme culture that exists from non-rival fans.
It's funny, mate. I can't deny it. As a non-version, that's all we got of you though these days. To be fair, you always beat us anyway. So I looked by the way, we're playing you for the fifth to last game of the season in April. Oh, I don't like that.
Let's go.
That's when we're playing you. So
I'll go that with you. But yeah, I'd love us to go all in for the FA Cup, and I think most Spurs fans would. I mean, that would be
huge.
If you want to pin me down and say, would you rather we finish top four of the FA Cup? So I'm going to get off the fence. I would say, as a Tottenham fan, I'd rather we won the FA Cup.
I think you're right.
Interestingly, I was asked that same question the season before. We'd never been in the Champions League in the Premier League era, and I actually said the opposite, because at that point it wasn't so much of a barren spell since we last won a trophy, and I hadn't in my lifetime seen Spurs in the Champions League. So I wanted to experience that. But having experienced Champions League football on a lot of occasions, I now would rather we prioritise the trophy.
Archie
but ideally, I would like both.
He said, sorry, I genuinely forgot about the League Cup. We did. I think that's what Archie said in the comment. But I think he's telling the truth there, because I sort of slipped my mind as well. But to be honest, I think you're right. I think...
He definitely didn't. You know you did.
No, but I think I do think I don't think you need Champions League football right now. I think like where you are, I think like the feel is more important to the actual league. And I think winning the FA Cup would be so much bigger for Spurs right now than the Champions League, because like I can imagine that as a kicking on point. You'd be in the Community Shield next season, like you'd be in that, and you'd start the season. with tons of energy, and you'd be seen as I know it's like Spurs are obviously a huge club, but like winning a trophy and having that feel good factor, and maybe finishing 6th or 5th or whatever, but a push and being close to the Champions League.
Yeah.
The springboard from that, it'd be absolutely huge, wouldn't it? I think you'd take so much energy from that as a fan base.
I agree, and it goes back to linking it back to City because it's a City channel. I remember reading Carl Walker after he won his first League Cup. I think that was the 3-0 game against Arsenal. I was at that game actually at Wembley. I think that was the first trophy. I believe that was the first trophy that Carl Walker won at Man City. Obviously, he's gone on to win loads. And him saying that was the first time I believed that actually I can win a lot of silverware. Once you get that first trophy, and I heard a lot of Liverpool fans actually say, Liverpool players, say a similar thing after they beat us in the Champions League final because they'd lost the previous year. They knew what to expect in the final. A lot of players say once you win that first trophy, it is a springboard to other successes because you know what to expect in finals. It's not just the game; it's everything else that comes with it, the expectation, the demands, the fan base, the extra media, the lifting a trophy, getting that first trophy in the cabinet for a lot of these players. I just think will be a massive springboard for us going forward. So, yeah, I'm FA Cup all day long with that one.
I agree. Just before we wrap up, mate, a couple of thoughts on Liverpool and Brighton. Obviously, those two, both 3-1 wins at the weekend. Liverpool beating a good West Ham side 3-1, of course, as well. Salah on fire at the moment. Brighton, another impressive victory 3-1 against Bournemouth. What have you made of Liverpool's start to the season? Because
do you know what? I'm going to give Liverpool some props here. I feel like it's going a little bit under the radar how well Liverpool have done this season. I don't know if that's because you're right. I think obviously because Ange is coming and Spurs are doing well. There's a lot of loving for Ange at the minute. You've got Robbie Williams singing singing a song on his behalf. There's a lot of media attention to Ange, quite rightly so because we love him. But I feel like Liverpool. I looked at the table the other day after the Arsenal draw and just presumed we were second or third. Then I went, oh, Liverpool's there, and I've seen every one of their games, but I feel like there's not much of a fuss made about Liverpool because it is Liverpool and there is that expectation. But you've got to bear in mind where Liverpool were last season. Obviously, they've lost a lot of players, and I think a lot was made potentially unfairly of the players that they got rid of, the players that they were unsuccessful in bringing in. But actually, what Klopp's done and what the players have done has been brilliant. I mean, they've only dropped 2 points, and that was away to Chelsea in game week 1. So I think Liverpool look really, really good, and they've beaten some good teams as well. So. I mean, I think Liverpool are having a great season. I think Klopp's a brilliant manager. And they've still got... I know they've lost players, but they've still got so much quality.
Salah's on fire, isn't he, man?
In that, Salah is superb. I mean, Trent on his day, Van Dijk. I think McAllister's an excellent signing. It's a really strong squad, that Liverpool team. I think it's going a little bit under the radar. I mean, do you think they're title contenders? As a City fan, do you worry about them?
I was doing some content for, towards the end of last season, and I said on one channel that I felt like... they could be up there, probably even closer than Arsenal. I feel like they've got that experience, And I felt that form at the end of the season. They went on a bit of a run, didn't they? And they pushed for the Champions League, didn't quite get there, but that was the true Liverpool. The start of last season wasn't Liverpool. Like the last 10-15 games of the season, that was Liverpool. And it was so much of their form was just dependent on Salah and Alisson. Those two wonderful players, and Alisson is just the best keeper in the world. And I can honestly admit that. But then Salah is just sensational, and Szoboszlai is just taken to Liverpool perfectly, and McAllister is he's a winner. McAllister, he's a winner, and that's the thing about him. And I think players who have won the World Cup, they just feel like $1 million, and he's such a quality player. And Nunez is scoring goals. He's becoming like a good Origi. That's the way I can describe it. He's got a bit of that clutchness to him. Where he just seems to have big moments, but he's obviously such a chaotic player. And all the memes aside, he's obviously effective. So, and Diaz obviously back, and it's just a good side. And I think that I do take them seriously. Obviously, let's see how it goes over. The defense isn't perfect right now. I think they are conceding chances and goals, but they're good. And finally, watch out about Brighton, mate, because obviously they are still up there.
Mate, I love watching Brighton play. I mean, I don't think this is a crazy shout to say they're one of the most entertaining and enjoyable teams to watch in terms of how they play football. I mean,
brilliant.
The recruitment at Brighton is just phenomenal. I mean, it's like they're constantly getting rid of their best players. If you look at, even if you go further back, all the players that they've got rid of, back to Ben White, the Cucureas, the Yves Bissoumas, Caicedos. I mean, the list goes on and on in terms of players that they've lost, but they always seem to just find absolute gems from nowhere. I mean, Mitoma, mate, I've said this so many times, I'm a massive fan of Mitoma. His ceiling is incredible. They've got so many players like that.
Yeah, I wanted
when he came in the other day, and the goal that he scored was sort of like, I'd have needed 7 touches for that. I mean, I haven't played in a while, but he just makes it look so easy, and they're so easy on the eye, and they balance it well with some experienced players amongst those young players as well. So, and again, De Zerbi as well. He's someone that I've heard so much praise about from people in the game that have worked with him. I think he's destined. I think De Zerbi is destined for no disrespect to Brighton, they're a big team, but I think he's destined for a huge job and a huge career. I think he is a genius of a coach. So yeah, I think Brighton are well in there. It'd be interesting to see how they do in Europe as well, actually, because I think it'd be interesting to see how they balance that and prioritise that. But the recruitment, best in the league for Brighton. I think everything they do about watching them play football, one of the most exciting teams to watch. So I definitely think they'll be in the mix for sort of top 6, definitely.
Indeed, I agree. I mean, it's just let's see how they have managed Europe, because obviously they lost to the first game against Athens, and like
epic game. That,
it's
just busy game.
Yeah, it's like this. They're no mugs European sides. That's the thing, is it's such a different style of football, and like they're not scared of playing Brighton. You know, like again, there's so much respect for Brighton these days in the Premier League, but they go in the Europa League and they're not bothered. And it's sort of like it's so chaotic in that competition that it makes for cracking football. But Smithy, thank you so much, mate. It's been a pleasurable half an hour chat. It's been great fun. I do kind of like enjoy seeing the optimism of a fan when they get a manager and that turns the club around, because it's just we've all been there.
I'm a bit overexcited.
No, it's great, mate. But we've all been there. Like we all have that at some point.
My
for our
tattoo
club.
in hands we trust. I haven't got that.
But that's happened already, hasn't it? Fans have got that. Someone's got that.
I'm very excited, mate. I love it.
Yeah, mate. Well, you're an absolute star. Thank you for coming on the channel, mate. It's been massively appreciated, guys. Thank you to Smithy, of course, in the chat and so on, and thank you for watching this. Of course, you can catch Smithy over on Sky and Saturday Social, and I'll be there at some point, hopefully again during the season, chatting away about football. And of course, you catch him. It does a lot of work with Spurs as well. You see him everywhere, basically. Mate, thank you very much for coming on. And I've got a Carabao Cup game to prepare for tonight.
Oh, he's got it in again, isn't he? I knew he'd mention that. Yeah, mate. Honestly, I just want to say it's an absolute pleasure. You're one of the guests we have on Saturday Social a lot. You're a great top bloke. You know your Man City stuff well. You're a very passionate fan, and all the best with the channel. Honoured to be here, and I'm here whenever you need me. Maybe we preview the Man City Spurs game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, because it's always a nice fixture. I've jinxed it, haven't I?
That's not happening. I'm just going to blank that game. I'll disappear for a week online.
Jinxed it.
Right, anyway.
Man, mate.
Cheers, man. Guys, thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to give the video a like, subscribe, all the usual stuff, and I'll catch you later on for the coverage of the Newcastle game. Watch a preview from yesterday as well in a bit, and bye-bye.